Hey everybody, Brian Corey here from Necronomicast. I just wanted to take a minute before I begin the 14th year of this show, the 10th year of my involvement, and my going on my fourth year of being the host and producer. I just want to take a minute to thank each and every one of you for your support and your listenership. I want to thank all the great guests that I've had over the past couple years. It's really led to phenomenal growth of the show. Television appearances, spoken word lectures, live events, guest appearances on other shows, and it's just been a ton of fun. So in the words of Denny Schneider, my trumpet teacher in college, straight ahead, everybody. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a very happy new year. From the historic haunted heartland of Omaha, Nebraska, my name is Brian Corey, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all, young and old, to this episode of the world-famous Necronomicast. My guest tonight for a late-night conversation live in the studio, my good friend, Steve Berg. Now, many of you might know Steve from his many television appearances on Drunk History, The Goldbergs, The Good Place. But Steve is one of the great ambassadors of weirdness here in Nebraska. He's traveled far and wide lecturing and talking to anybody that will listen about all the great, spooky, crazy things that are happening in this state, right in the middle of the good old US of A. So it is my pleasure to welcome for the first show of 2024, my friend and yours, Steve Berg. All right, everybody, here we are at Necronomicast headquarters. I don't get to host guests here very often, so I'm so glad, Steve, welcome.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me, man. It's good. I mean, I've done, back pre-pandemic days, all the podcasts I used to do used to be in person. So this is like a kind of a throwback. I like it.
Well, I like it too, because usually I'm sitting over here, I've got notes and I'm super prepared, but I'm just really excited just to just hang out and shoot the shit.
Yeah, we're going to play some jazz.
Let's do. Well, all right. So people on the Necronomicast that have listened for a long time may or may not know who you are. Mm-hmm. So Steve, you're an Omaha native. Mm-hmm. We went to the same high school. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit older than you. Then you went out looking for fame and fortune and found equal amounts in California, and you're hanging out back here in Omaha.
Yep.
And you are like this goodwill ambassador of high strangeness.
Oh,
so it's
thanks.
Yeah.
That's, it's a hefty burden, but somebody's got to do it. So I lived in LA for almost 21 years, and kind of during the pandemic, my parents are getting older. So I started freaking out about them not having any family close by. And my wife and I came back here, bought a house, and now I just kind of go back and forth when there's not a strike.
Right.
But yeah, I love being back in Omaha. Omaha's great. It's, I feel like a lot of people who aren't from the Midwest don't know how spooky the Midwest is.
Right.
And I mean that in a positive way. But Omaha is obviously, it's not that spooky. It's, just kind of like any city in America. But 10 miles outside of Omaha on a country road, it feels like a flying saucer could land in the field or a cryptid could cross the road. I mean, it's spooky. And I love the access to spooky places.
Well, we have it here for sure. And yeah, I mean, you and I, we smash tacos and we talk about different places that you explore and I poke my head around in. And you and I we're going ghost hunting together.
I'm so excited.
By the time people hear this episode, our ghost hunting adventure will be over.
Yeah, you know what though? You know what's a great idea? Maybe you'll come on my show and we can talk about you, but we could also talk about what we experienced.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I would love to download and document that because it's my first investigation, official investigation.
That's right. We're going to go and ordinarily we wouldn't probably say this ahead of time, but we are going to the Malvern Manor with Josh Hurd and who else is going to be? Hauser's going to be there. And then our friend John, I think he's going to be there.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I don't know if he knows he's going to be there, but he's going to be there.
Well,
we'll tell him after this.
You'll be there if you know what's good.
Oh,
for
he
you.
will. He would not miss it. That guy is dedicated.
Yeah. So, but what I like is you have a huge grasp of UFOs and all those kind of phenomena, which I read about. But you and I have talked about this over lunch. So much of the UFO world kind of goes over my head because I'm not into like the military government parts of, I like the strangeness, the weirdness of it.
Me too. I mean, I know a lot about the history of the UFO conspiracy theory and the whole government stuff, just because I've been reading about it my whole life. It is the thing in terms of like high strangeness, Forteana, UFOs, whatever. It is the most boring and dry part of it. And that's the thing, like what bothers me about mainstream ufology these days, it's about government machinations and not the phenomenon itself.
Right.
I want to know what the little UFO-nauts are,
and the whole story seems to be, well, what is the government hiding from us? What, I don't care about the government right now. I want to talk about the space government, like not the U.S. government. Jesus mercy. We get that all the time.
I'm so with you. I find it, it just puts me to sleep. And it's what else is funny is I kind of, keep up on UFO Twitter, which I shouldn't. It's bad for my health. But you see these old narratives that go back to the 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s that we know are false.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're bubbling up again. And we're like, whoa, man, Richard Doty, do you hear what he's? I'm like, guys, he is literally a disinformation agent. So it's funny because it's just so poisoned and the well is so filthy at this point.
Right. But there's that mystery of it, just like the mystery of Bigfoot and Crispids.
and Rice Krispie treats.
Cryptids and ghosts that I like the mystery of it, and the fun that you can have just exploring all these historic places and stories and characters throughout time.
The magic of place,
for real.
I'm so with you. I am purely interested in the phenomenon itself, with all this stuff. What's at the core of it? What does it represent? What does it mean for us? How do we intermingle with it? Are we part of do we co-create with this stuff? So I'm interested in more of I have a philosophical, metaphysical interest in this stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Not I don't care about what the CIA knows. Bore me to death,
Right, for sure. You hear all right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. So much of the paranormal too, ghosts and everything is all evidence. And here's what I collect, and here's my evidence and evidence and evidence and evidence. And I'm like, I can't look at every photo or watch every YouTube video or every, sure, that stuff's interesting. And I'm not dismissing anybody's work because that's their passion. And
sure.
And mine is just talking to people. But where was I going with that? The evidence and how everything's so based on what evidence you collect. And it's I want to hear your story. I want to hear your experience.
I do too.
Like my friend Andrew, who was on stage at the historic Continent Heartland thing, he didn't have a camera. He didn't shoot footage of the apparition, but his story is so compelling.
Yeah, his story and how it affected it and how if it did not change his worldview. I mean, that is the evidence and data that investigators actually can collect.
Yeah.
I don't care about the propulsion of a UFO and what it means for reverse engineering or, you know what I'm saying? But what we can do is find, especially with anything, ghosts, Bigfoot, cryptids, UFOs, if you read enough about it and talk to enough witnesses, you can start forming these patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And these patterns raise better questions we can ask.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, investigators and researchers, that is what we can do. I think if you're trying to be a UFO activist or stuff like that, I feel like you are probably wasting your time. There's other things we could be activists over that would probably be more beneficial to humankind than UFO activism. That's just my take. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I think there is data and stuff and different motifs. It's why do things happen on bridges so much? Why do small country roads, why is there always UFOs landed in the middle of them? Not always, but there's so many cases of that.
Right.
Or Bigfoot crossing the road or apparitions on the side of the road. There's something about roads. So how can we peel apart that layer? So there's so much we can do, I think. Yeah.
And what's neat, what I like about you, you're going out in the community, you're going out and you go to these places.
Mm-hmm.
In Nebraska, you're always telling me you're going to these roads, you're going to these county, dirt roads and county roads and that are way out there that aren't, traveled very much, just to go see it for yourself.
Yeah.
To see if I encountered something, where's the sun in the sky? Where's the moon in the sky? Where are the trees looking like? You're getting a real a boots on the ground sense of what's going on.
Right. It's just, and first off and foremost, it is a fun way to spend a day. It's going out and adventuring, and I feel like I'm in the movie Goonies. I bring a sack lunch. I make a whole thing of it, and like the lunch is important to me.
Well, yeah, you got to eat local too.
You got to eat local, man. I go into a diner and you can talk to people. Say, hey, did you ever hear about this? Most of the time they hadn't. But I actually went, like, here, for example, about probably, gosh, it was like, I think it was last November. I went out to, oh my gosh, now Garrison, Nebraska.
Never been.
Which is a village of, I think, 80 people.
Yeah.
But 5 years ago, and you'll remember this case, it's kind of what made Harriet, our friend Harry, who owns the Bigfoot Museum, go viral.
Okay.
But with the
Garrison.
The Bigfoot braiding the old Vietnam flag in the cemetery.
Right.
So I'm like, I got to go out there. I've been wanting to go out there. So I went to the cemetery, checked it out, and there is like a tributary and like a tree line right behind the cemetery. I'm like, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that had I not gone out there. But then I went to the little town where supposedly there was a woman and her daughter and her daughter were walking their dog, and they got growled up by something huge in a tree. So I went and walked around there. First off, I didn't see one person. It looked like it was just the whole town. It's like a city
Which
block.
is spooky in itself.
It was unsettling. Finally, I was walking around there with a GoPro, and I'm sure if anyone saw me, they're like, "What is this weirdo doing?" You know. And but then I ran into a male woman, a postal worker, and I asked her, I go, "Do you know about that case?" She's like, "Oh yeah." She started telling me about that. I heard about that. That was kind of a thing for a minute. And I go, yeah. I go, have you heard of any other Bigfoot sightings around here? She goes, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. People all the time. All the time. She's like, well, not all the time, but I've been doing this for 12 years. And I hear many, many stories about people seeing Bigfoot. I'm like, I would not have known that had I didn't go out there and run into this, postal worker.
Right.
And then so like that leads me on a path to go into other little towns and talk to park rangers, police officers. And a lot of times it bears no fruit, but every once in a while it does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful.
Well, I think back to the time when you and I went one of the first times we had lunch together, we went to Hector's.
Yeah.
And
Great place.
Love them. Went in Omaha.
Yeah.
So and you were wearing a hat that had some insignia on it. And the lady that sat us, our hostess, looked at it and said something. And then boom, 45 seconds we're inside the restaurant and we're talking to a lady about UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of your hat.
Yeah.
And she's talking about how she's had experiences within a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like about a year ago, I went to my dentist, and there's a new dental hygienist, and she was working on me, and she was really nice. And I cannot remember how it came up, but this is like 4 minutes into the cleaning. Mind you, she's like, my mouth is open. She's cleaning my teeth.
Right.
Finally, I mentioned something about UFOs, and I asked her if she's ever had like a paranormal ufological experience. She goes, well, I actually have. And she told me the story. And it was a story that actually impacted the dad so much that the dad kind of went a little nutso for a while. So it was like a very traumatic experience for the father of the family.
What happened?
Well, they were visiting Okoboji, which if you're an Omaha, Nebraska person, it's a popular kind of like, resorty, like lake place, really beautiful.
I was in a band that played out there somewhat regularly, and it's a place where you go and play in a band and you don't remember much after the gig.
No, there is a lot of consumption of green alcohol out there.
For sure.
It's beautiful. It's super fun. It's very close to the Minnesota border.
Oh, yeah. And it's super nice.
It is.
It's beautiful.
It is totally beautiful.
For sure.
But they were vacationing, and they were driving back to Minneapolis, where they're from, and they see like a silver light way up high in the sky. And the kids are sleeping. They're like driving back at night. And then this like light drops down, like kind of to this like parallel with the car, and it's like moving with the car. And then the dad is like freaked out. The mom wakes up. The girl like said, I kind of remember this. She's like, I was pretty small, but her dad got out of the car and like kind of like started jogging toward the field, and the thing just stood there. There was just a light hovering in the field. Parallel to the dad, and finally just like kind of like floated away. But the dad became obsessed, started buying UFO books, attending UFO meetings. For a while, he thought maybe he was taken, and a lot of that was probably like what was going on in pop culture, and Whitley Strieber's book was maybe out at the time. But, if you don't ask, sometimes you won't get these stories. And a lot of times, you won't get anything. Although I will say a lot of times, and you probably know this too, you'll say, hey, have you ever had a paranormal experience? And someone will say, no, not really. But there was this one time. Yes. And then they say something that's so crazy. You're like, well, I saw an apparition in my, my broom closet. I'm like, well, that's
or it's funny. Like I'll know somebody for years, and then I'll mention something, and they'll say that sometimes like my podcast world doesn't always cross over with my in person experience with friends and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're into that stuff. I didn't know you're into that stuff. Brian, that one time I saw this, and I'm like, what? We've known each other for like 8 years, and you've never once told me at all that. Because they probably think you're going to think
exactly
they're crazy or weird or something like that. And I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah.
No, feed me stories.
Right. Well, and that's such a good point, because while I've been into this stuff since I was like a little child, I kind of came out of the weirdo closet like a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And since I get emails and Facebook messages and like, not all the time, but I get quite a few of people telling me their story, and they just want to tell their story to someone who's open-minded to it.
Who's not going to dismiss them or think they're crazy. And actually, like, because, Tenny says this too, like, if there are none of these things, I'm not going to quote him directly, but if there are none of these phenomena out there, if none of this is true or whatever, at least we're still talking to each other and sharing stories and relating to each other.
Right. And it kind of is an entree into talking about life and the meaning of life and bigger philosophical ideas.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times, and probably one of our lunches, I'm sure we do this all the time, we start talking about ghosts or something, but then it leads to like, something way deeper and more meaningful. It is just kind of like a little portal you can go through and, have these wonderfully enriching conversations with people.
Yeah. Because, especially like life persisting after bodily death, that's going to affect us all.
Right.
All of us. You might not have a UFO sighting. You might not see a big hairy cryptid, but one of these days we're going to check out.
Yeah.
Or people that we care about check out.
Right.
Or, and what happens after that. And
that's one of the great mysteries, and that almost belongs in the category of high strangeness to me. Like, because it is a mystery we probably will never know the answer to, but mystery is good. I think it helps humans evolve. If everything was answered for us, I think we'd cease to exist. What
would be the point? If you can't pursue the transcendent in some way? What's the point?
Right. I think life is a journey, and mystery is like the biggest, engine of life's journey.
And I love it. Like, I think back, like when I was a kid, like I've been interested in this stuff all my life. I remember I was just even thinking, I was dusting my bookcase, and there's a book over there. I'll show you. It's an old school Bigfoot book that came out in the 70s. And I hunted it down because when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, it was like the hot book in the Underwood Elementary School library.
Yes.
Bigfoot all over the country. And like there was a waiting list to check out the book, and I wanted it. And every time I would go in and talk to Mrs. Gates, the librarian, it was out. I never got it. And then fucking Bobby Field had it for weeks and lost it, and then brought it back the last day of school. And I was like almost in tears, Mrs. Gates, it's fine. He brought it back and I can't check it out. She felt so bad for me and knew that I was looking for it for so long, on this waiting list to check it out. She let me check it out for the whole summer. So I had this beautiful Bigfoot book for the entire summer. She trusted me with it. So I brought it.
That's great.
Well, I found it on eBay then.
Yeah.
Now I have a copy of my own, and Bobby Field will never, ever get that copy.
Oh, I bet you'd loan it to him if he really wanted it. You're too nice.
I know. But I just, it's just
I'll print off a PDF, Bobby.
Right. But you just think back to when I was a kid, that was this Bigfoot book was the biggest fucking thing in my life. I wanted it so bad to check it out and read about it. And because I saw the Patterson Gimlin film, and that was, it was 9.
Game changer.
Yeah. I love all that stuff.
Oh, me too. Did you ever go to the Swanson Library on
90th and Dodge?
So that library was the game changer for you. They had a ton. I don't know if you remember this, but they had a ton of paranormal, occult, weird magic, UFO books. I couldn't. It was astounding. There must have been a lot of adults going to the library. I mean, it wasn't a kids' library, so yeah, there was plenty of adults going there. But I couldn't believe it. I checked out every one of those books, and even if I was wasn't into palmistry, I'll check out the book and read about it because it was somehow relating to the paranormal. But
my mom used to do. Well, I grew up just off 90th Street, 90th and Meadow Drive, 90th and Western Meadow Drive, Blondo.
Sure.
So right.
Oh, you were real close.
Yeah, I used to ride my bike there, and then Indian Hills Theater and
the best.
But Swanson did have I'm thinking back because I went back not too long ago just to walk through it because I'm always scared. They tore down our downtown library.
Yeah, which is tragic.
Right. Well, they built a replacement.
Yeah, but I don't know about that.
I know.
I like when things are downtown. Like downtown's old.
Yeah.
It's the heart of the city. I don't know.
And it's one of those things where it probably makes economic sense because this old building, blah, 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 the real estate. I understand. I mean, the adult Brian gets it. All right, tear down the building.
Brian, yeah.
Yeah, but like Omaha Brian or the spirit of Omaha Brian is like, damn it, man, we just lost the goddamn library.
Well, it's probably one of those things because you and I are the same age-ish, and we are now seeing like all the old restaurants we grew up loving growing up, like disappearing. And so there's a lot of brick and mortar places in Omaha. There's a lot of great new stuff. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of the change that's happened is really wonderful.
Yes.
Especially culturally and artistically.
Oh, without question.
Omaha's never been this cool or hip, by far.
Omaha's never. Let's say that again for the listeners. Yeah. Omaha has never been this cool and hip. I don't think.
It's really true. And it's a very cool, mid-range city now.
Yeah.
But if you're like an old, Omaha, you were born and raised here. I'm starting to miss some of the old, steakhouses, even though I didn't go there much, but I like driving by Anthony's and like Los Solomios and like places like that.
I have, when we're down here around the corner of the studio here, I have a stained glass window from Mr. C's.
Oh, we've talked about Mr. C's.
Yes.
That was like my birthday place.
Yes, me too.
Oh, it was honestly my favorite restaurant in the entire world.
My birthday's in October, so we'd go to Mr. C's and then I would go to Mystery Manor. My mom and dad would take me to a haunted house and everything. And the Manor's gone now.
See, we're losing all these things.
I know. This turned into old man radio hour.
Back in my day.
These damn kids and their cell phones.
I know.
Electric scooters.
I know. It's not good. I'm always complaining.
Yeah, but that just shows how much we love and have a reverence for the past, right?
Yeah, I'm sentimental for like brick and mortar places.
Yeah.
I guess I am. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the other day I was driving past a place and I'm like, I had a birthday party in that building when it was a W.C. Frank. And I'm like, yeah, but then another time I ate there and I threw up. So I remember like the...
Oh, W.C. Frank's though, dude. I love that place. So W.C. Frank's, listeners, if you don't know, it was a wonderful small chain in Omaha.
Yeah.
That was a just kick-ass arcade.
Yeah.
And they had really bad food. Like, it was like old hot dogs on the like spinning thing. It didn't matter though. I mean, it was wonderful.
It was like a restaurant that served gas station hot dogs.
Exactly. But you loved them as a kid.
Yeah, and 39 cents. Your parents loved it too.
Dude, and the arcade was badass. They had everything.
Yeah, that's where they made their money.
Yeah.
For sure.
I would mow lawns and then, then pull up $5, get quarters.
Yeah.
Play $2 worth of quarters on like kind of the high dollar games and then just milk the rest of it on like, Galaga and stuff and where I could get a lot of bang for my buck.
For real. Dig Dug. I played a lot of Dig Dug.
I love Dig Dug. I feel like I'm going to start crying right now.
I know. We got to move these microphones so we can hug it out.
I know, man. That would be my time machine thing. People would be like, well, what would you do? I'm like, go back to W.C. Frank's in like 1986.
I would have the Mr. C special at Mr. C's restaurant and then wander around some point. I don't know. Yeah. This turned into old man radio hour.
It did.
But that's fine because we're talking about like the ghosts of the past.
Absolutely. We're tying it back in. Because
we're talking about Swanson Library and we were kids and we were talking about books and how formative that kind of time frame was too. Because,
it was.
And people poo-poo it and stuff too. But like I started reading more about occult and ghosts and stuff because of Satanic Panic and people telling me, you shouldn't read this. You can't read this.
Me too.
So there was a lot of teenage and young adult angst. Like, I'm not supposed to read this book. Let me thumb through it a little bit.
The Anarchist Cookbook. Yeah, exactly. I would order books out of the back of like Thrasher magazine, which they would sell like very subversive kind of.
Oh yeah.
And just it was even like conspiracy books about who really killed Kennedy. And like I would, because my parents it was the 80s. They didn't give a shit. I would just take my lawnmower money, stuff it in an envelope, send it away myself. I remember I was so obsessed with sending away for stuff.
Yes.
As a kid. I remember like I would get stamps for Christmas and I would like send away, order books, magazines, like, all kinds of like dumb junky stuff. But it was like, but I felt like that's where I learned to write too. I was like also like write celebrities and like filmmakers I liked.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was like because my mom gave me like a book of like celebrity it was just basically their agent's office, like their fan clubs.
Oh yeah.
But I loved it.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a dork. Huge dork, man.
Well, yeah, like I've said this on the show before, and I think I told you this at lunch. Like, my dad was 70 when I was born.
Mhm.
My mom was 40.
Mhm.
So do the math. He died when I was 15. So like I grew up with my parents didn't watch a lot of TV.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was just weird. It was like growing up with your with grandparents. Like I talked differently because they said phrases that my friends' parents didn't say.
Right.
And I watched movies that like older people watch. So I was the only kid that I knew that had a poster of Humphrey Bogart in their room.
But that is
smoking
great,
a cigarette.
though.
You know, I'm like 11 with a picture of like Sam Spade from the Maltese Falcon in my bedroom. And yeah, it's a weird way to grow up, but it's great.
It's great because you got to understand like pop culture of other decades that I didn't, and like you can always catch up with where you were,
right.
and you can figure out MTV and like what was happening. Falcon's Crest,
Knots Landing. There was a ghost episode of Knots Landing.
My mom watched that. I would watch those shows with her, and I really liked it. God, I loved them all.
I know it was your mom's birthday, but when I had everybody over here that night before the event in Omaha, we sat around like Tenny and my friend Mitch Town and Jim and Nate and Zip and all these guys. We're all sitting around talking about the scary episodes of old TV shows, like Fantasy Island and like Mr. Rourke Fought the Devil and like all these things, and Love Boat, the paranormal episodes of Love Boat. So my point is like when my parents, when you said lawnmower money, like I would go to garage sales and buy 50-cent paperbacks and things like that. So I'm like 11 years old reading The Exorcist, Jaws, and there's all these kind of adult situations being described, and I didn't understand them. I mean, I was reading them, but I didn't know what crucifix and
doing, putting it places. Yeah,
right. I didn't know what that meant, but I read it.
Yeah. And it made you curious about what it means because, everyone wants to know, they want to understand something they don't understand. So then you delve further.
And just reading books about ghosts and Hans Holzer but we grew up in a time where satanic panic and we were watching out for, kids getting kidnapped left and right off the streets.
Totally. Well, it's interesting kind of the time period we grew up in because in the 70s like really enjoyed a kind of occult pagan revival.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the occult and the paranormal and even UFOs were kind of like not mainstream like they are today, but they were definitely like not so taboo.
Well, they were Saturday afternoon TV for sure.
They were. But then in the early 80s, kind of during the Reagan years when, like family values and stuff like that. And, all, kind of the satanic panic started with the evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
Then the paranormal kind of became a thing you didn't want to say you were interested in out loud.
Right.
And I even like understood that as a kid. So when I was reading all these books, none of my friends were interested in this stuff. I had no one in the world to talk to about this stuff, which was fine. But I did feel lonely because I was so interested in this stuff. But, eventually I would go to some conferences in Lincoln and go see Dr. Jack Kasher speak, who was the MUFON director back then. And then I kind of like found a little community. But also I was like a little kid amongst like a bunch of boomers,
Now, did your dad take you to those?
He would. So I at Westside Middle School in 7th grade, I got an independent study to go to different like lectures.
Yeah.
And most of them were UFO and like paranormal ones. I would go on UFO or on UNO's campus, which is a local college in Omaha, people. But I would go see these UFO lectures. Sometimes they would bring abductees in there. I'm like 13 years old and I would go back and write a report on it. And,
and you did that for independent study at Westside Middle School?
Yeah, in 7th grade.
God.
I just pitched the idea to them. My English teacher, and she's like,
Who was your English teacher?
Oh my God, that's Miss Wiltsey.
Okay, I remember her.
Do you remember Miss Wiltsey?
I remember her. I didn't have her.
She was great. And I was like a pretty good writer and reader back then.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else in school I wasn't very good at. But so she kind of like, was like supportive of it. I remember she's like, well, write me up a proposal, what you would do. And, I did. My mom proofread it, brought it back to her. And she's like, if your parents are okay with it and you will give you a ride there, we're cool with it.
Yeah, if your parents are fine with it and you're writing a coherent report on it.
She'll let me out of class. And I was like, this is great.
Wow. No, that's cool. I didn't have that. Yeah, I was in Westside Middle School the very first year it formed.
Right.
When they closed the other schools and consolidated them all into Westside Middle School,
Yep.
the old Arbor Heights. So I was there for 8th grade for that. I didn't have anything that cool.
Well, yeah, I was just a precocious kid with that stuff. And I think I was going to miss these lectures. So I was like, I can't miss these lectures. How can I possibly make these and tie it into school, kind of do a 2 birds with 1 stone? And I think it might have even been my mom's idea. She's like, well, why don't you like write a proposal to the teacher and we'll get you a ride? And I'm like, okay, it worked.
Right on. Did you ever go to the Antiquarian bookstore?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh.
I would buy, that was like where I bought a lot of my music too. And
yeah, for sure.
Kind of informed my punk rock culture and punk rock taste.
See, I knew you were cool because the Antiquarian bookstore, ladies and gents, was a 4-level bookstore in Omaha's Old Market District, which back in the 80s, it was a little bit dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people would say it's dangerous now, but
just that block was dangerous.
Yeah, if you went down to Michael's,
it was really, I mean, even Drastic Plastic, man, like it was sketchy, but I loved it.
Yeah, that's where I bought my first pair of Docs.
Oh, dude, of course, I would buy like Blue Velvet shirts there, like Misfit albums, and I loved it there. That was like one of my favorite places ever.
I remember buying my Docs there, and they were like $110 back in 1989, 90.
That's like $1,000.
Yeah, it was like buying a car. Then. But I mean, I remember like mowing lawns and just having I was paying for $117 in pretty much ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, but the Antiquarium, so 4 levels of the store. The basement was a punk and jazz record store. And it was staffed by a guy named Dave Sink, who would not hesitate to correct your music buying purchase.
Yep.
I remember going there and buying or wanting to buy a Wynton Marsalis. I'm a trumpet player, so I was buying a Wynton Marsalis CD, a used one. And he's like, no, I'm not. No. I'm like, what? He's like, no, I want you to buy this one. And he pulled out like a Miles Davis tape. He's like,
right.
And it was less money than he could have made more money.
Yeah.
Me buying the CD. He's like, no, you have to buy Sketches of Spain.
Yeah.
You can't buy this.
Totally.
Marsalis. Oh, okay, Dave. And so then he's the one that, showed me, just all kinds of bands, and then that's where I found like Maximum Rock and Roll and Thrasher Magazine. And they also had weird, old porno mags down there too. Do you remember that?
Vintage porn. Yeah, I sure do. I mean, it was the cool weirdest place where like there's rules didn't exist. There was no censorship. It really was kind of like really encapsulated that era of punk culture.
Yeah.
Same with Drastic Plastic and a lot of kind of the downtown stores. Downtown really was like the place. There was a few blocks in Omaha back in that era that actually had was brimming with culture.
Yes.
And those 2 places were, at the forefront.
Yeah, because then you had that downstairs. And so I spent tons of time down there.
Yeah.
All the time. Go down and see Dave because they had a giant bulletin board. So which bands were looking for members, which bands had shows, who was on tour, who was coming to Omaha. Like that was like the board in town.
It really was. Yeah.
So then, so Dave would tell you what to buy, tell you what shows to go to. And he was always right. He operated a record label down there, 1 Hour Records, that put out 7 inches for local groups and stuff. Then the next 2 levels up were just used books of all kinds.
Yeah.
Huge bookstore. And all these countercultural dudes just kind of laying around drinking coffee all day and having poetry. And it was just really.
Well, it was a real beatnik place, like it's a place you could imagine like William S. Burroughs and like Allen Ginsberg and Kerouac hanging out back in the late 50s, like it had that vibe and energy. And
having a hot cup of coffee on a July day.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so weird. It's like you walk into this place, like, hey boys, you want some coffee?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like 95 degrees.
Well, and they would
outside.
smoke in there too, like I remember like there'd be like barefoot, the people that worked there were always like barefoot and their cats,
right. Yeah, they're smoking in this place that's got, 100-year-old books.
Old
everywhere.
dry paper. It is a tinderbox in there. But like, hey man, it was part of it.
Yeah, they had an out-of-tune piano that I must have written 4 or 5 songs that, in my band days, like just banging on that old piano. And then up at the very top level, folks, very top level was a art gallery that showed just the craziest countercultural art that you can imagine in the Midwest. And so when you're 14, 15, 16 years old. And like my mom was all excited, like, oh, You bet. I'll take you and Paul down to the bookstore. And
of course.
My son wants to hang out at a bookstore. Well, I was getting a real education there.
You were.
Punk rock, jazz, porno books, poltergeist books,
but
crazy countercultural art. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like that stuff. If you take away that from a kid, like for me, I was one of those kids who needed something like that in my life.
Yeah.
Because I just had this like interest from a young age in marginalia in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like if things were popular, I assumed they weren't cool, and like, but most of my friends would think they were cool. So I just never like fit in that way. So when I learned about these punk shops downtown, it was like walking into Graceland for me. I was amazed and wowed. My brother was cool and he liked that kind of stuff, so he would take me with him all the time. But it was great. We would spend hours down there.
Yeah.
Just combing through records, kind of like listening to what the older kids were talking about, like it was great.
Oh, for sure.
Changed my life. It really did.
Yeah. I mean, when you're in like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade and you're hanging out with, guys that are older than you and in punk bands, they're like gods to you.
They are.
They're talking about what shows they have coming up. And now you look back and you're like, well, they were just, crazy, like, but it was just like, wow, the guys from Mousetrap. I got to meet them down at the Antiquarium.
Oh, that's huge though. Mousetrap ruled.
Oh yeah. I love Mousetrap to this day.
Me too.
And, but they were at the Antiquarium and it was a big deal.
I know, man.
Like when you're in middle school.
I know. It's again, here we go again.
Right.
We're going to cry.
Right. Yeah. But like when you said like, things that were like super popular, what I kind of didn't like about all those things is that they're just so easily accessible. And maybe I didn't catch that. I get that now.
There was no journey to get them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, if,
that shit's at Target. That shit's at, it's at every store. It's at everybody's wearing it. And I'm like, that's cool and all.
Yeah. And I was the furthest thing from an edgelord. I was actually kind of like a button down punk, where I didn't necessarily, I mean, I would wear a Husker Du shirt, but I would wear like a button down over it. You know what I'm saying? Like I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I wasn't fully committed to like the attire of punk rock. Mm-hmm. But where was I going with this, Brian? Do you remember?
Well, we were talking about the cool kids and this.
Oh yeah. Well, like I think I was attracted to edgy things.
Okay.
And that is like one thing about horror movies.
Yeah.
Especially like the 80s and 90s. Those movies were, while they're successful, they were still not considered. They were all, by every critic, considered trash media. Yeah. And to me, that attracted me. I'm like, well, if they think it's trash, if the establishment and the normies think it's trash, there must be something there for me. And I found that in horror movies. Horror movies were like relaxing and comforting to me.
Yeah. In a weird way. Before I hit record, we were talking about like Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and like how we saw it when we were kids, and it totally traumatized us. And I remember watching the Friday the 13th documentary, and they had a clip from Gene Siskel from Siskel and Ebert saying, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, a immoral and reprehensible piece of trash. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I mean,
this is the thing that warped my brain.
Yeah, but also it's a really good movie. Like it is. Like it's well crafted and performed. I mean, like Crispin Glover's in that, man. Oh yeah, Corey Feldman in his Diamond Rock years where he was actually at his peak. It's a really good movie. I would highly recommend giving that a rewatch.
Oh, for sure. But but that kind of countercultural edge, for sure. And that's what kind of lends itself to all these, we were kind of talking about earlier, sharing stories and people not thinking you're crazy. And it just lends itself to that. For
right.
Sure.
Well, there's a more open-mindedness to people in the counterculture, people who are more accepting of outsider art or, marginal things, just like there is a more acceptance and a open-mindedness that I always found very attractive. Because, normal things that are very easily accessible, while they're fine, there's a lot of great stuff in the mainstream. I'm not like that much of a hipster, where I'm like, oh man, it's popular, I don't like it. But I will say when, it's different when you discover a band on your own and you had to work for it a little bit. I feel like it's more meaningful. That's a good point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But even going back to weird stuff, like I find that punk culture and counterculture are inextricably linked with high strangeness. Mm-hmm. Not the phenomenon per se, but maybe because a lot of people who are into this stuff are marginal people. John Keel, Jacques Vallée, or, anyone who writes about cryptids. Now there's people crossing over like the new Kirks who are, I mean, they're even them, they're not in the mainstream. They're in the mainstream in the paranormal world.
Right.
But like all my friends who are into this stuff, they have no idea what Hellier is.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
And I've tried to get some of them to watch it, like thinking that this would be a good introduction into paranormal, and they don't get it at all, but
because it's decidedly different than all this.
It's decidedly different.
Right. Because they're, everybody gets into this how they get into it. So I'm not putting anybody down.
Me too.
But if all you know at all, I mean, if you never cracked a book when you were 9, you and I are raising our hands, and your only introduction to this stuff is watching the first season of, or catching something like Ghost Adventures,
right?
Or and no, I'm not putting anybody or anything down.
Yeah.
But if that's all you know a very small, minuscule part of this whole crazy world.
Yeah, and perhaps the most boring part of the crazy world. Where I feel like
the most processed and refined, and you know what I mean?
Like as a person who's worked in media for a long time, or 20 years now, I can tell you that the media aspect of High Strangeness, in my opinion, is while I feel like it serves a purpose and I do consume some of it, I feel like it is not really representational of what the phenomenon is and the history of the phenomenon. And I mean, they're having to make TV. They need a beginning, middle, and end of an episode. So they're going, it's going to be contrived. I'm sure most people out there know that. I think there's certain shows who do it better. Like I think Kindred Spirits is a show where I feel like they're doing a good job of making, of like doing high quality stuff in that formula.
I agree.
Probably better than anyone's ever done, to be honest. And
I agree.
Especially with given they're having to work with big networks and getting a lot of notes and having to appease a lot of people in suits. So the fact that they're able to get that show and make it as quality as this, I'm not sure how they did it. Because it truly is we may never see that happen again on that level.
I'm totally in agreement with you, for sure. Yeah. And then another thing too, like with like Hellier, they filmed it all on their own. They made it exactly how they wanted. So they didn't have to really bend to any kind of corporate need or anything like that.
Which is why I think it was so good.
Right. So if you've got, if you've got enough footage, or if you want to tell the story in 10 1-hour episodes or 8 1-hour episodes, instead of, 17 minutes commercial break, 16 minutes commercial break, 9 minutes commercial break. And if you're not bound by any of that and you put out how you want it, and then they give it away for free.
Yeah, exactly. But also so smart because there's no boundaries to it. No barriers. And I bet even if you want to talk about business terms and financial terms, I bet they made more money giving away for free than had they charged.
Yeah, and I don't mean this as a slight or anything at all, but they know how to make a dollar.
They're very good.
Yeah.
Because, they put out a lot of stuff, and they should be paid for it. And
for sure.
And some people, say like with UFOs, they're like, oh, UFOtainment and like all this paranormal entertainment. Like, what is wrong with it? I see nothing wrong with making money off hard work you're putting into it.
Yeah.
So I have heard people criticize the Newkirks for probably doing at least well enough financially in this world. I'm like, bravo, good for them. I hope they keep on cranking. I hope they're even more successful. I want success for everybody because a rising tide lifts all ships. I'm a big believer in that philosophy.
Oh yeah, sure.
But the fact that people get mad at their success, I'm like, I don't know. Go touch some grass.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things to be mad about, but being mad about that.
Yeah. And like in the back of my mind, when people are mad, because it goes back to like my music days too. It's like when people are mad at your success, there's a lot of especially in music, there's a lot of backstabbing.
Yeah.
Like backstabbing to get the good gig, to get the opening slot for this band and to do this or that, or I want this radio airplay. But I'm really dating myself. But I mean, like the things to undercut somebody else to promote yourself. And there's a lot of that still in the paranormal world.
There is.
It's all like, well, my evidence is better than his, and I have more clicks and subscribers and all this kind of stuff. And,
right.
And it's like, that's cool. If somebody's got a real convincing ghost photo and they have one YouTube subscriber, I want to see the convincing ghost photo.
Me too.
I don't care if they've got, TikTok following 4 million people. I don't care. That's cool. That's great, but I'm not motivated by that.
Yeah, I'm not either. Yeah, I'm just motivated by quality and interesting things.
I've seen 2 really great ghost photos this year. One, you and I saw together at the Bigfoot conference.
That was truly mind-blowing.
Yeah,
that was actually the greatest ghost picture I've ever seen in my life. You know,
it might be the best one I've ever seen too.
I feel like John got a copy of it.
John,
our buddy John
Cudis?
Yeah. He was there. I'm almost positive he got it.
I have a copy of it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, the guy sent it to me that night. I mean, like there, I'm like, I told him I would not, everybody's going to get mad. I said, I won't share this online. I'll only keep it on my phone and like show people this way. Yeah, I have it.
Dude, you're going to need to send it to me.
Oh, sure, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that photo that was super convincing. And then when Tenny was over here, he had a picture that somebody took at Belvoir just this summer.
Right.
And it was like a picture of the field outside of the cemetery. If you've ever been there, there's a cemetery, the Old Fellows, the Odd Fellows Cemetery. And then you kind of wander down this path. And it looks like a gray figure, somewhat translucent, just kind of walking just off in the distance. And you look at it and you're like, wow, I mean.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Is it
so
real?
cool.
Who knows? But it's cool.
But it's awesome and fun and cool to talk about.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Is it a ghost? Maybe.
Yeah.
Patterson Gimlin? Is it a Bigfoot? I think so.
I think I am a firm, like, belief is a word I don't love to use.
Right.
This stuff. I find the Patterson Gimlin very compelling.
I've found it compelling for 45 years.
Me too.
Ever since I saw it when I was a kid. I remember watching some Saturday morning show or something. Maybe it was In Search of or something. I remember seeing it. The sun was shining in through the front window. I mean, it was during the day, and I saw it, and I'm like, I mean, like it. Yeah, it energized me. It scared me. It frightened me. And enthralled me. Everything.
Me too.
Like, holy shit.
I remember like taking a book. There was like I think it was actually the Time Lapse series, and they had like a cryptids. And they obviously used the Patterson Gimlin still. I have the full set right down there. Oh, you are amazing. I think I still have it at my parents' house. I have a bunch of boxes of old books, and I bet mine's still in there. Anyway, I remember like walking downstairs with the book open to the Patterson Gimlin picture, showing it to my dad, and going, I mean, Dad, why aren't we not talking about this? And he's like,
drop everything.
Yeah, I'm like, we have to talk about this. What is going on? And he was like, oh God, he was a total atheist. He's an atheist skeptic. Like he's in he's an exercise physiologist. So very fact-based guy. So he was like, oh Lord, my son's a weirdo.
The guy in a monkey suit.
Yeah. Oh man.
Funny. Yeah. Like, I don't remember my dad's reaction to any of that stuff. I think they believed in ghosts. My dad was really, he did not believe that Oswald killed Kennedy. I'm just trying to think about like my dad and stuff like conspiracies and weird stuff. We didn't have a lot of conversations.
I mean, the single gun shooter theory is pretty murky. I mean, the magic bullet theory too. It's like, that's tough to buy. It's actually really hard to buy the whole narrative of Oswald. My mom was really into true crime. My dad was into like fishing and Westerns. I mean, that's what he watched mostly awesome
on TV.
Too, though.
Right. But I mean, my mom was really into true crime. But we watched all kinds of weird shows. But I remember like my dad being like, oh, wow, the Cubans or something. Like, no way he thought Oswald acted alone. And that's the house I grew up in.
Right.
Ghosts, sure. We watched Bigfoot in Search of, I mean, like, it was like that kind of.
That's great, though. That's like a pretty great like vibe to have around.
I wonder what my kids think. Like, I know like Landon reads a lot of paranormal stuff, my youngest. Jackson, I mean, I think they like horror films and stuff like that. I mean, it's very open. I never push stuff on them, but there's always like October, there's always a ghost show on or something. Like I'm always watching something. And so, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're a fun dad. I mean, like, it's like. I think I'm a real fun dad. Yeah, well, I think the sign of a fun dad is a dad who hasn't fully, will never fully grow up. And you have a, I got a Bigfoot statue toy over there. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like you have a, like, I don't want to say you have a childlike quality about you, but you have a whimsical, like, I love, weird things in the world. Like you have a reverence for pop culture. Yeah. How is that not fun? Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's what I think that's why you and I get along so well. It's like it's like finally like there's another guy in Omaha that is I like the word whimsical.
Yeah.
I like that too. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take the phenomenon too seriously.
Oh, I think it's all whimsical.
Like if you want to argue with me about a ghost or Bigfoot, like I don't want to argue.
Yeah, I actually.
If you feel that strongly that I'm full of shit, then all right, I'm full of shit.
I have
I guess you have enough evidence that I'm full of shit.
Totally. I mean, I have a couple friends, who really are just like want to challenge me in this stuff. And I used to kind of defend it. I'm like, but I mean, like, the thing is, like, I guess on its face, had I not read, all these books and been into this stuff my whole life, well, I may not think there's anything to it either.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually takes years of research and reading about it and being skeptical. Because I am, while people think like, oh, he believes in everything, that is very false. I'm probably more skeptical than most people. Yet I'm open-minded. And I think being open-minded and being skeptical can work in concert beautifully together.
Wow, that's really powerful.
And that's something that took me 30 years to be able to like learn how to do. Well, to look at evidence or read a book, to really scrutinize it, but yet be very open to extreme weird things that are super complex.
Yeah.
So I
mean,
I feel like it's kind of the only way to go, really.
Everybody hit the back button and listen to the last 15 seconds again. No, that's really good, dude.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, maybe it's just me also being like a guy in his late 40s that's just like, I don't need to argue about this stuff.
Totally.
I
don't need to be right.
No, if you want to think a ghost is this or that, okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Exactly. It might be.
Yeah.
Who am I to say?
Right.
I really about 10 years ago, I'd say I started really putting the dots together about how a lot of these things are connected or could be connected.
Right.
Like you start reading about Bigfoot encounters. And then if you really start looking at the Bigfoot encounter and then kind of expand it out a little bit, a lot of times there's lights that are seen in the sky or there's weird sounds.
Yep.
And different things. And maybe a UFO is seen here and then maybe a week or two later, then there's a Bigfoot. There's like how that's connected and how, how alien abduction, some symptoms or signs or evidence or whatever of alien abduction sounds a lot like a poltergeist activity.
Yep.
Just all that kind of stuff and how it's all woven together somehow by some mystical thread.
Right. And the whole old adage is that the UFO people hate the Bigfoot people. The Bigfoot people hate the ghost people. The ghost people hate the Bigfoot people. And none of them would share evidence. Right. But what you can find when you're an all-purpose weirdo like you and I are is that, just for example, let's take orbs of light.
Yeah.
Orbs of light, just off the top of my head, they appear with prior or post UFO experiences.
Mm-hmm.
If you're searching so many times with ghosts, there's like little blue orbs of light. That's very common.
Mm-hmm.
With Bigfoot, the orb of light phenomenon is talked about all the time with witnesses. Yet if you go to like BFRO, they leave that data out. And if you go to MUFON, which is the big UFO organization, they leave the weird stuff out because they're looking for legitimacy, where I don't think, like with this stuff, like looking for scientific legitimacy to me is like just walking on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Like and to leave out that good data is not good science. So like, but going back to what you were saying with
it's like talking about COVID and not mentioning the fever that you have, just the cough.
Yes, exactly. It's leaving out a lot of the details. And it was interesting you were saying like how a couple of years ago you were starting to think about how the stuff is tied together. Well, we can look at the patterns like light phenomena and say like, well, if you see a light in the sky, it's a UFO. If you see a light in the forest, and then hear a growl, well, it's a Bigfoot. But if you see a light in a house, it's a ghost. But lights are a motif that is, it's hard to think of high strangeness that doesn't involve lights. There's sometimes powerful psychics will emit lights in the room.
Oh yeah.
So, it's, give me a little subtopic of the paranormal, we can find light phenomena in there. So maybe light phenomena is like the rawest form of whatever this non-human intelligence is.
Yeah.
And we kind of imprint something on it, a meaning on it. But why is a light in the sky a UFO, but if it's in a house, it's a ghost? Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, these are things we can think about. And actually, when you talk to people and, people who, that's why I feel like people who like are really, intensely into the ghost world should be talking to people who study UFOs.
Yeah.
We might get really far down the road if we compare notes.
Sure. And when you get the full picture of things like like with Bigfoot, you talk about smells.
Mhm.
You always smell something.
Yep.
Usually, people say like, well, an odor of some kind.
Yep.
Well, some people might experience a ghost through grandma's perfume.
Absolutely.
They might not hear her voice. They might not see her walking down the hall, but all of a sudden,
Yep.
you get a whiff of it and it's gone.
Yep.
Well, there's a smell. Tie it into something else like a Bigfoot, or it's just
yeah. I mean, Joshua Cutchin's book, The Brimstone Deceit, is a book all about paranormal smells.
Yeah, I don't have that.
It is I recommend all his books, but he kind of ties it back to the fairy faith.
I have where the footprints end.
That's great. Yeah, the Timothy Renner, his Bigfoot book.
Yeah.
It's absolutely my favorite.
It's not where the footprints end, is it?
It is.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Volumes 1 and 2.
I have one.
Yeah.
Volume 1.
Great. Volume 2 is even better, I'll be honest. But
okay.
His book, really kind of delves in and deconstructs and uses comparative analysis between like fairy culture, which the fairy faith in like Celtic regions in Scotland and the Scandinavian is still to this day taken pretty seriously.
Oh yeah.
Like how we talk, but if you were to go back in those old, like read, like I just got done reading the Secret, oh my gosh, it's
The Secret?
No. Why can't I think of the name of it? Oh my gosh. But it's a very famous book, huge volume book about fairies.
Oh, wow.
And if you substitute the word UFO or alien in any one of these stories, it sounds like an alien encounter.
Oh, wow. See?
And it's just the phenomenon, morphing itself, matching our evolutionary times.
That book we were just talking about, that it blew my mind when he's talking about Wildengeists.
Yes.
Like a form, like a forest ghost.
Yep. And
those wood knocks, are they Bigfoot or are they poltergeists?
Rocks being thrown at you?
Yes.
I mean, objects moving around?
Or maybe that's telekinesis.
Absolutely. Josh
mercy.
Josh is a very good friend of mine. And so
wow, cool.
I ask him questions all the time. Like I'll just text him like, Kutch, so what is this? But he's great. To me, he's doing some of the most exciting new writing on high strangeness.
Yeah,
period.
that book was like, I read it and there's times I put it down. I'm like, I don't even know what I just read, but it just blew my, he's on another level.
He is. He's super academic and like, he's just wildly smart and the most well-read person I probably know.
Mm-hmm.
So he's intimidating, but he's also the nicest, just sweetheart. He's a trombone player.
Oh, okay, cool.
You'd love him.
Well, let's talk about this for a second too, because people are always scared about being labeled as crazy or nuts or whatever. But let's talk about how, like, some of these people that like you mentioned Cutchin, and of course people like John Tenney, and I had Cindy Kaza here too. But like some of these people are so intelligent that are in this field
for sure.
Like I can only like, sometimes I feel like a little bit of imposter syndrome when I'm on this show and having people in. Hello. Oh. That are so smart and so well read, and they know this stuff backwards and forwards, and they've been around it forever. But then there's also a mixture of like the kindness in there too. Like they want to share this information, and they don't put me down for asking a question they've heard a million times. Like I was really scared to have Lloyd Auerbach on my show.
Yeah.
Like I was like I booked him and I'm like, oh man, what did I do? Like I need another year.
Yeah.
I can't read all of his books by the time. I read like 6 of them by the time he was on the show, but what a nice guy.
Yeah.
Just so nice. And it's neat that there's people in the field that are willing to share this information and their kindness, no matter how smart they are.
Yeah. That has been my experience too, where probably the smartest people I've ever come across my entire life are people in this field. Now there is definitely, and I probably, choose the people I like talk to and spend time with and end up becoming friends with. Maybe I'm picky about that, but it has been quite astounding. There's 2 kind of things. One, there's 3. They're highly intelligent, very well read. 2, they're super sweet and super nice. But 3, a lot of times, I mean, like almost everyone I've had on my podcast, I've only done 20 episodes. 19 out of 20 of them are artists.
Oh yeah. I've
not
noticed that
professionally, but like they are either deep appreciators of arts, or they play music on the side, or make little movies, or like do something in the arts. Yeah, and I feel like we were going back again. These things are inextricably linked, because I feel like art is an expression of mystery in the unknown.
Right.
In a way. It can be, at least, you know?
I was trying to get to that during the historic Haunted Heartland thing when I had my friend Andrew come up, who had the ghost apparition sighting in his house.
It's a wonderful story. I love what you guys did. I mean, like, man, you guys sounded great together.
Oh, that was really fun.
It was so fun. It was a great, real sweet way to start the show, too.
Yeah, because I wanted to start off with a laugh, and he's so talented. And
he was ripping on that thing, man.
Yeah, and imagine he's been doing that like since I met him like 30 years ago. Like what I mean, like I was like, I'm in this. I came from high school, and then I went to UNL. Andrew's in the same jazz ensemble. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in this band? Like, how did I make this band? Like, I can't. Nobody wanted to follow Andrew ever playing a solo after Andrew sounded better than the instructor.
Oh, he was slaying that night, man. I was like blown away. But you were killing too.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, you're really good. Don't cheat. I mean, like you play for like College World Series. I mean, like you have huge gigs. You're playing in front of thousands of people.
Yeah, I do all right. But
I do all right.
I do the best I can.
Yeah. Well, it's cooking, baby.
Well, I'm glad you're smelling what I'm cooking.
Yeah.
But like with Andrew, like what we were trying to do, like I thought was cool is like kind of tap into this left. So much of music is left brain because you have to analyze the music and you have to analyze score and chord structure and all this stuff. But then some of it you just kind of check out and it's right brain and it's creative and it's intuitive and you're connecting with people on a whole different level. And I thought, well, what fun would that be to have the whole crowd sing, have Andrew react to it, then the people are singing back, reacting and stirring up the psychical energy, and then have Cindy came in.
Yeah.
So like that whole, what I'm trying to get is when you were mentioning the creative people, that's what I was trying to kind of tap into, like some kind of artistry. Works. And even Cindy, she's doing these spirit drawings now, and she just kind of channels this and starts drawing these wonderfully complex apparitions on paper. I don't even know what you would call them.
Yep.
Yeah, you just see that a lot.
Artist. I mean, like, it's and that's the thing. I think what you did with that opening the show with the music, and then especially going right into Cindy's performance or lecture, I don't know what we're calling it.
Gallery reading.
Yeah, there you go.
A reading.
To me, it created this, and not to sound too like new agey, but a flow state where you're interacting with the people. You kind of dissolve the, I'm on stage, I'm better than you. I always try to do that when I did improv and comedy. I would always try to interact with the audience right away because then I'm like, hey, I'm just one of you. I just happen to be on stage. But it really, I think it endears the audience to the performer. Yeah. And the performer gets to feel like they're not in a room full of strangers. And so you create like this flow state where the audience got to perform with the people on stage by singing along. And I thought it was great. Well, it dialed me in. I mean, like truly, like, I remember having a nice IPA sitting there back really excited about the show. And right when that started, I was like, oh, I stood up in my seat. Like, okay, here we go, baby.
We got to sing now.
Ready for takeoff. I loved it, though. I love to participate. So.
Yeah. That's super fun. And then, then my wife and I are wandering around the crowd with microphones trying to find people that are interacting with Cindy.
Sure.
Cindy. It's just a thing about it. And I don't want to talk about the show too much, but another thing I wanted to stress, and I appreciate the spirit that you bring to when we're talking about this phenomena, is we are talking about monsters and ghosts and all this crazy shit. And I really like having a live event and going to live events and being a part of something or experiencing something and not being afraid to laugh.
Yeah.
A Halloween, October ghost paranormal thing doesn't have to be about death and tragedy all the time.
No.
It doesn't.
I couldn't agree more. I'm like a broken record on my podcast about this, but I find I gravitate towards people in this field who can take themselves seriously, but not always literally. Because at the end of the day, I'm a 47-year-old man out in a cornfield with a perfect stranger who's got 2 guns strapped to him looking for a paranormal Bigfoot while my wife is at home going, what in the hell is wrong with my husband?
Please come home.
Yeah, exactly. Please come home. Please come home. Yeah, I'm out there doing it. And when I sometimes will zoom out, I will say, interesting life choices, Steve, but it's so funny. And then when I tell people what I was doing like the next week, they're dying laughing and not at me about the situation. So these situations, that's one thing about going out and investigating and, going to a place where a UFO landed or a Bigfoot was seen. It's fucking hilarious, dude. That a grown-ass man is doing this and taking it seriously. I'm like calling up the sheriff of these small towns.
Right.
Wanting to talk about Bigfoot. I'm sorry, that is funny.
Yes.
And I don't want people I'm not trying to I know some people are very serious about this stuff and don't laugh, and God bless, that's their choice.
Of course.
But to me, I'm going to laugh at the situation I'm in.
But not in a way to ridicule. It's the absurdity and wrapping your mind of it. Like we live in this very, everybody wants evidence on everything. Yeah. They want evidence on, we can't even agree on who was elected for this position in our government.
Yeah.
Whatever you believe, we can't agree on this, but we need some kind of evidence. We need the evidence on this. We need evidence on, and it's just, a lot of times it's just so tiring.
It is.
And you just want to experience something fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if your pursuit in this stuff, which I know it is for some people, and I think maybe not so much anymore, but I think the whole thing, at least with UFO people, for example, it was always about like the next person would have better evidence about Roswell or better evidence. And that's how they would sell books, and I'm not like putting, whatever, that's got to make a living.
Yeah.
But that is not what the journey is about for me.
Mm-hmm.
I will never come up with great evidence. I'm telling you right now, but I want to go out there to experience the stuff and then tell other people about it.
Yeah.
Because there's this great quote that I think about all the time, and I'm so stupid and I can't remember her name. She was a German writer, I believe, but she said, the universe is not made up of atoms, it's made up of stories. And to me, the stories, even if they're not true, if people, some people are like, what's the point of UFOs? What's the point of ghosts and all this stuff? I'm like, the stories.
Yeah.
The stories are the point. So that's what I'm after, man, is the stories and the experience.
Like my friend Andrew on stage, like one of the first times we hung out, we were in the UNL Jazz Ensemble together and we played a concert. And then afterwards we went back to his house, the haunted house, and we were having beers and whatever. And it was, later at night and we're just hanging out, listening to some jazz. And he felt comfortable enough to tell me, because he wasn't like bragging. He wasn't trying to scare me or anything like that. And he's like, well, because he'd only been in the house for a few months.
Right.
At the time, he's like, this house is haunted. And I just met this guy a couple months earlier. We've only been in class together, jazz ensemble, for a little bit of time. And he's telling me this. He saw something in me that he trusted. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was because of the beers in us or whatever. Right. That's fine. I mean, we've been friends for 30 years now. But I mean, there's something connection there where he felt like he could tell me that he saw a fucking ghost.
Right.
In this room that we're sitting in right now.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I know. And I think I said it on stage. I'm like, well, I think this guy's fucking with me. But no, he was so on, and his stories never changed. It's always been, it floated. I saw it. It was here. It went, and the landlord saw it and it was like that bonded us, that story. And also other experiences. But it's like he trusted me enough to share with me that experience. And that was like a real part of our friendship.
Right. And these experiences oftentimes, I would venture to say most of the time, are incredibly personal.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're incredibly personal, and people may derive meanings that are even more personal. So I feel like you should always even if you don't believe the person, and sometimes I've gone to these conferences or gotten some weird messages where I'm like, yeah, I'm not, I can actually kind of discover with a little research that they're not telling the truth. Mm-hmm. Or I feel like maybe there is a mental issue.
Sure.
Whatever it is. But I always at least give them respect. I'm like, well, thank you for telling me your story. Not that I don't buy it. That's bullshit. Show me the dead alien. I'm like, some people are like that, and I feel like that's very counterproductive. Uh-huh. And also just as a person, really, that's a dickish way to be. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like telling somebody that you went to a restaurant and had a really good meal and I fucking hate tacos. And it's like,
well, there are people out there who want to yuck everyone's yum. And, and it's those are I feel bad for those because those people are obviously hurting inside and they, just need a big hug or something. Mm-hmm. But that is not a quality I can be around too long.
It's tiring for sure. Yeah. And the whole, the pursuit of evidence as the be all end all,
Good luck with that.
Right. And in the ghost community, it's real problematic too, because there's so many companies that are making, there's no such thing as a ghost detector. Right. There's no such thing.
Right.
But there's a lot of companies that are making equipment that measure or react to certain stimuli,
Mhm.
you know, and is it paranormal? I don't know.
Yeah.
If you want to put sensors and LED lights inside of a teddy bear and it lights up when you talk sweet to it, okay,
Right.
that's cool.
Yeah,
I'm
I
fine
hear
with
you.
that.
I hear. Well, I'm super interested in this investigation we're going on next month because while I've been to haunted places, I've never been with kind of professional investigators in terms of ghosts, and I'm super excited and open to their process. I'm actually.
And you've been to this place.
I went on a private tour. Josh walked me and a friend around during the day, mind you. It was like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
Scared the living shit out of me.
Oh yeah, I think that place is still totally haunted.
I mean, whatever, you hear this all the time, but the vibes I got, and I'm not, obviously, because I've been putting myself in these positions my whole life, I don't scare easy, man.
Right.
I was uncomfortable the moment one. I mean, yeah, I loved it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like a negative to where I was like, oh, I want to run away. But it was one of these things where I'm like, I'm sure I'm going to see a shadow person any second now. Like I felt very certain with the sun coming in the place.
Right.
It wasn't even nighttime. I can't imagine what it's going to be like at night. Because I feel like this is one of the scariest places I could even imagine. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
It really is, man.
Right. And there's nothing, I mean, yes, there's documented deaths there and everything, but I mean, the place has just got that weird energy, that vibe.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it's because of the ghosts or if it's because of the reactions to the phenomena over the years, like how it builds up. I think even John said this on stage, there's a ghost or something happens and there's residual ghost energy over here. But then people see it and they react. And then that reactionary energy is now part of the
feeding. Yeah. It adds on to the egregore, or whatever you want to call it.
And that gets compounded over decades and decades. And so who knows what's in that place?
Well, that brings up an interesting point. And while we're doing
it could just be human cyclical energy.
It totally could. But while we're doing this thought experiment, I do sometimes think that folklore and mythology is not just all made up. I think there are, I really can't think of an example, but I'm open to the idea of if there is enough folklore and enough people believe something in a situation and put all this emotional energy towards, like Malvern, there could maybe when he bought it, there was not one ghost. There was no paranormal activity. But by the very act of him investigating it and other investigators coming in and putting these intentions and these hopes and fears and, laughter, may have created paranormal activity in this place.
It makes it like a lighthouse.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's something to that. Now, I don't have any evidence of that, but it's just kind of an idea I'm keen on these days.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you listen to Johnny Hauser, who we'll be hanging out with, he talks about how the Villisca energy has changed.
Right.
Like he felt like the haunting has changed over the years.
Super interesting. See, I love that. And that's
because of all the different energies of the people coming in there and whatever they're doing in the place.
Absolutely.
I mean, who knows what's going on in that place.
And maybe just the very act of people, when they first opened it up for people to tour, knew the story. But when they would go in there, I mean, like, you're going to feel something unless you have psychological problems when you walk into a little house knowing the history of a place where children were murdered.
Oh, God.
So when you walk in there, all of a sudden you're emitting this emotion of fear, sadness, like dread because of what happened in there. And then think of all the thousands of people who have been there. So like you said, I like the idea of like this energy and people are adding onto it and it's collecting and growing bigger, stronger, or whatever. But like that is super interesting to me that he said the phenomenon had evolved.
Yeah. Yeah, and he can't pinpoint, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but he can't pinpoint, like he doesn't say things like, it's gotten more evil.
Right.
Or he's just like, it's changed. And he's there every day. He goes there, every day and takes the trash out and locks up the place and makes sure everything's okay. And he's there all the time, so he would know.
Yeah, that is super interesting. And I love when people actually say that stuff because I feel like there's people out there who are like, well, if I say it changes, then now people aren't going to take it as seriously.
Yeah.
I feel like it's brave when people actually are honest with the data that they're finding. Because sometimes that data can make you look less trustworthy
Mhm.
to some people.
Right.
Not to me and you, but like, I'm saying to me, I'm like, that is so honest and interesting.
Yeah.
Now I'm more interested in your work. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, yeah, and that's way more interesting to me, and it sparks more questions and thoughts in my brain than just saying the Velisca house. It's got 8 ghosts in it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
that's it. Finite amount.
That's it. The 8 ghosts, the murder, maybe that's it.
Yep.
No. I mean, it could be now. It's what? Who?
Well, yeah. Even the house we're in right now, there was residents in there before you were here, and there will be residents in here after you're here. So just like in this world, it changes hands. So why not in the astral plane?
I was talking about this. I forget who, but like when my mom passed, and I was getting ready because that was my childhood house that I grew up in. When my mom passed, and I had to sell the house, so when I was cleaning out the house and getting it ready for closing and whatnot, I remember walking around and like opening up doors because I like the way the sound,
Right.
like the squeaking of the door and how it like I'm recording it and doing all this stuff. And I touched the walls and I was crying at different points, and I was sitting in a room with no furniture, and I'm just like, oh man.
Yeah.
Well, who's to say that at some point, the people that live there now might see I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I'm still alive right now, Steve.
Yeah.
But somebody could be in that house.
Speak to me, apparition.
Be amazing if you weren't. This whole time I've been talking to a ghost.
Evidence. Would
Twist,
I say about
everyone.
evidence? Evidence. Right here on Necronomicast. No, but like, what if the people that live there now at some point see a little glimpse of me crying?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh shit, the house is haunted.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're just picking up on my sadness.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the moon phase, the whatever, you know?
Right. No,
Yeah.
I mean, like,
The ghost of the living person that's just sad.
and I love that idea. To me, that notion is as good as any I've ever heard.
I know, right?
And I love it.
It's
And-
crazy.
Well,
I love it.
But it's great. And that's why I feel like, everything's on the table.
Yeah.
It's like, the person who you meet who is certain about what UFOs are or ghosts are, or Bigfoot is, even Bigfoot, I think, when people are so like, it's flesh and blood, it's a missing link, it's this. And I'm like, how do you know that?
Well, in our time that we have remaining, let's talk about
Yeah.
the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference real quick.
Great.
Because you and I were both there. I was MC, and you were not a patron.
I was there. Yeah. I was there
yeah.
all weekend. I got a hotel. I had a little vacation. It was great.
So and like I was talking to people, and there's a lot of like Western Nebraska good old boys that just want to shoot one, and a
Yep.
Bigfoot is just a undiscovered hominid ape, and it's
Or
just
it's a Nephilim from the Bible.
It's a Nephilim from the Bible,
Yep.
a scourge upon this planet, and we're gonna, and for them to be so close-minded and die-hard,
Right.
it's only this.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy to me.
It's
Like,
really crazy. And I don't
it
know.
might be a giant monkey.
It very well might be. And I
Or-
actually, I'm actually speaking next year at the Bigfoot conference.
The Nebraska?
Nebraska one. Yeah.
They got a hold of you.
Yes.
Very
So yeah,
good.
and this one woman that
Tamara.
Tamara, who she's great. I'm going to tell you about the lunch we had last week. Actually,
Perfect. I'm so glad
I
that
got some
happened.
juicy information that I can't share on the old show just yet. But I have a feeling
You're going to be speaking at it.
I am. I have a feeling half the people are going to want to kill me. And then I bet a lot of the younger, because a lot of times I've spoken a number of these things now. The younger people really get it, but a lot of like older white dudes
Mm-hmm.
tend to not really like my woo-woo ideas about all this stuff.
So
It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a pretty 50-50 mix, but I'm not going to hold back, and I'm not, what I'm going to talk about is mostly just Nebraska stuff.
Oh,
So,
good. Because this is April 26th and 27th, 2024 in beautiful Grand Island, Nebraska.
Yeah, come. It's great. It's a really fun conference. Brian, are you emceeing again?
I'm MC.
Hell yeah. Brian's such a perfect MC. But you made it fun, lively, and you don't take yourself too seriously.
Oh,
which
no.
There are people there who did take themselves too seriously.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's fine. Whatever.
Good. I'm so glad they got a hold of you because I was like, you need to call, at least get him on your radar, get Steve on your radar because he is so well versed in all this. He's a great ambassador for our state.
Oh, thanks.
And for all this crazy shenanigans out there. And I'm glad that they reached out to you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about, but it's going to be straight. It's going to be straight Nebraska. Like because I feel like that's the one thing I've missed the last couple of years when I've been to this thing. It's like no one's talking about Nebraska yet. 90% of the people who are there are from Nebraska.
Right. I heard about the Arkansas folk monster way more than I heard about anything in
which
Nebraska.
Is cool. And you should have it well rounded and stuff. But give me one person. And granted, there are not a lot of people in Nebraska really intensely studying Bigfoot. But you could come up with some people.
Yes.
Because there are well-documented cases that are very interesting and compelling. And there's a lot of new stuff that is out there still happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have evidence, but these are the stories I'm getting. So I aim to share some of those.
You ever get offended and when people say, well, these old white guys, they don't know what they're talking about, or all these old white guys with their closed minds. I'm like, I'm trying to shed or break this stereotype that, and not to bring race into it. I'm just being silly.
No, I know what you mean.
I know what you mean. It's like, hey, I'm not like that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not the good old boy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't try to like, I don't make it a conscious effort to not try to be like them. I feel like I've done a good job, just maybe the way I look or the way I talk. I don't really fit in with those people. I'm like a radical left wing, like you weirdo, man. So,
right.
I think you can tell in 1 second just by looking at me that like, I'm not cut from that cloth per se.
Well, if people can lump us in.
They can, and that's fine. That's fine.
I just think it's funny.
They can think what they want, man.
I know.
But once they hear me talk, they'll be like, this guy's insane.
Don't throw your apples and your oranges at him, folks. This is Steve Berg. No.
Yeah, please don't. You may have to defend me with a shield. So
it will be, oh man, I'm so glad that you made that announcement. Or at least that you said that, because I will take great delight in introducing you on the stage.
Oh man, thank you. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm really excited and honored to do it. I love talking about weird stuff any chance I get. So
see, we're getting in there. We're getting in these cracks. We're going to make it even weirder and more fun.
I think so. And you know what? They may not ask me back again, and that's okay. But I am happy because I am going to talk about some of the weird stuff that happens with these things. Not my personal belief system or what I think.
In Nebraska,
because there is a lot of where people are seeing Bigfoot historically. That's where people are seeing UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
That's where people are seeing Black Panthers. That's where people are seeing little 3-foot tall Putchwucky looking creatures.
Yeah.
So the patterns of, where people see Bigfoot, I want to also bring in that there's other weird stuff going on. And what does that mean?
Yeah.
So
Steve, God bless you, man.
God bless you, buddy. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's all good fun.
People want to find you. Of course, there's links on my page for your page, but hi, Strangeness, H-I, comma, like you're addressing the Strangeness.
You're like, hi, how you doing?
Hey, Strangeness, hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Strangeness, the podcast. Anything else you want to plug? Are you at one point in one of our earlier lunches, you were talking about maybe working on a book or something like that?
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
I am working on a book, but it's one of those things where every incident or encounter or whatever I talk about, I have to experience. So it's kind of a, sort of gonzo journalism style Hunter S. Thompson, without, doing massive amounts of drugs.
I was going to say without the mescaline.
I couldn't handle that anymore. I'm too old. But God bless him. He did it with such grace and wonder. But I am. This book will take a long time to do just by the very nature of how I'm approaching it.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just I don't think I have anything to add to the research world in terms of books. But I feel like I would like to document cases that I find very compelling and very interesting, but infuse myself in the story. Not where it's about me, but just my experience. Like what did I have for lunch that day? Because these are the details that matter to me. And I don't see people talking about this much.
Yeah.
But I always want to know when someone has an experience like, well, what was happening to you in your life? What was happening that day of? Were you fighting with your wife? Are you going through a liminal period in your life where you're moving or between jobs?
Did you have a headache when you saw this?
Absolutely.
There's things that people will overlook, like, oh, well, I only had diarrhea that day. That's not a big part of it.
Sure it is.
Well, it might be.
That's unusual.
It might be.
Yes. So, to me,
I can understand if you don't want to share that part of it.
Of course. But
you never know.
Yeah. But the human, because like what happens to the witness prior, and during, to me is the stuff that I feel like I can document and maybe put some pieces together.
Huh.
Everything else, the science part, I have no business even dabbling in. I'm a song and dance man. I'm an actor. So,
I'm a song and dance man. I love it. Dude, I'm so glad that you stopped by.
Oh, buddy, thanks for having me.
What a fantastic conversation.
This office is as cool as you've pictured it, my friends. It is beautiful. It's a good vibe, full of paranormal stuff, horror movie stuff. Just good energy in here.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks. I like it's not my total like collection and stuff, but I mean, like you can look stuff in there. Like I'll show you, and a lot of those things are very precious to me.
Yeah, that's good.
You might get 50 cents out of some of that stuff at a garage sale, but to me, they're priceless.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, everybody, it's been my pleasure to have in Necronomicast headquarters the great Steve Berg. Find him at High Strangeness, the podcast. And the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference, he's going to be there. You're doing the Strange Realities?
Yep. Next week, I'm going to Nashville to MC the Strange Realities Conference.
Well, this will be out way after that. But but I bet you did great. I bet you killed it.
I think it will go well. I think it went great.
You slayed. You fucking slayed it for sure. And then we'll have to, maybe I'll be a guest on your program and we'll talk about your experience on your first ghost hunt with some fellows.
That's going to be super fun to down. I would love to do it like right after, not like the day of, but like that next week.
Yeah.
So it's all fresh in our heads.
For sure.
We'll talk, but let's go ahead and just assume the next week we're recording.
Okay, let's do.
Ooh, fun.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. There we go, everybody. Episode 265 with my friend and yours, the great Steve Berg. A hell of a conversationalist. Very smart man. And a delight to go out and have tacos with. Steve Berg. Catch him on his podcast, High Strangeness. High Strangeness on your favorite podcasting platform. So subscribe to that, listen to that on the reg. Episode 266 is coming your way, January 15th in Necronomicast land. And my guests are Brett Eichenberg and Tobe Johnson. They are the directors of the new Bigfoot documentary, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot, which is available for you to stream right now on Amazon Prime. So make sure you do so. Everybody, thanks for your listenership and your support of the show in 2023. Lots of fun. I'm going to try and get a lot more things up on that YouTube channel. Live events, some of my live lectures, fun and shenanigans. And it's all for you. 100% artificial intelligence free. Some people would say 100% intelligence free. Haha. But seriously, thanks for everything that you do for me and the programming. I hope you have a great night and a great life. Now go get some sleep. Take care.